This is the Between Extraordinary Part 13. We have not played for a few weeks, and so we're going to do some recapping here. We currently have 3 active threats: the Monochromatic Men of Three Mills Island, the Emerald Orchid, and Sally No Face. The Monochromatic Men of Three Mills Island, you've answered all the questions. You have determined how the ritual that is being attempted to open this portal works, and you have determined that you need to resolve the threat by controlling or stopping the next key component of the ritual, thereby ruining any further attempts, and it can't be done again for another 1,000 years, according to the Almanac of the Hyades. I don't remember exactly what the next step was supposed to be. Does anybody remember what that step was? I want to say it was just like the next person of a certain color to be killed, but I could be wrong about that. Anyway, that's ready to go. It was not resolved last time because Hargrave House was interrupted by the Emerald Orchid and an invasion of people possessed by the Emerald Orchid, as well as the orchid itself was really kind of taking over Hargrave House to some degree and releasing spores and stuff. It was nasty business. In any case, you have 4 clues currently for that threat. And then Sally No Face is the brand new one. We all know Sally. You have 3 clues currently on Sally No Face. Taking a look at the hunters and in particular conditions, everyone's okay on conditions. Jakob has a couple, and Ms. Balakwa has a couple of very problematic ones. One in particular, the Emerald Orchid seedling growing under your skin, Ms. Balakwa. And Lady Florence is completely clear. Yeah, so that's sort of what's going on there. Julius was killed. Taking a look at our little side stories, Julius was destroyed last session. He was the one who actually sort of provoked this invasion from the Emerald Orchid. And then the Limehouse Lurker is still in the basement. Bigger side story is that the creature of Cremorne Gardens, who is in fact a fish person disguised as a handyman at Cremorne Gardens, is now a secret servant of Jizad. The Hargrave House does not know this. And of course, Jizad is doing his thing. You currently have on the mastermind clues front 1, 2, 3. You got 8 mastermind clues, so pretty good progress on that. Are there any questions or any observations or comments before we begin? Okay, then we will kick off with a day phase. Don't need to introduce any brand new threats because of having 3 active already. And so we'll just get some scenes framed up. Who has an idea for a scene that they want to do today? I'll start with
one question that relates to that framing up scenes. Did we have any other locations for Sally No Face?
The only thing so you have, there's the apartment that the last victim was staying in, and you did manage to go in there briefly and find some clues there. There is also just the general area of Whitechapel, which is where Sally No Face is kind of operating, or East London. And so that's where all the victims, there's 2 other victims as well, that's where they were found. The other 2 victims, though, those are pretty cold cases at this point. But you might still be able to follow up on sort of their past or whatever, or what their deal is. I can give you those names. They're in the description too of the threat. I don't think we've seen the body itself of Clara Yarborough. I think it's her name, Clara Yarborough, the last victim. We have not. No one's looked at that body yet, so that's a possibility as well. And yeah, that's about the extent of it, I think.
Sorry if I missed this, but with the Emerald Orchid, that mystery's still available to be solved, even though we had this big spike moment, or is it closed off because we have not?
The threat has you all under its thumb. You're not, not only have you not solved it, but it is openly attacking you. So yeah, it's still got to be solved and resolved.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's a citywide problem, right? All right. And yeah, what do you think, Victoria?
Victoria and Lady Florence had been heading out to meet with the botanist in the evening before all of the home invasion. So I would propose that Lady Florence and I, perhaps Miss Blockwa thinking she can capitalize on Lady Florence's haughty ability to just move throughout society, to storm right up into that area and see what we can find out and explore and investigate that way.
Yeah.
Apologize for being late to the party, and yeah.
Didn't we have an encounter with the botanist in some way? I could have swore we did.
Albertina Welk went to like make an appointment, and then I got ambushed by Tinara, the daughter of Jazad, who
That's
told me I
right,
wasn't
yeah.
wearing anything correctly.
Yeah.
And then Albertina came back and said, "Oh yes, we have an appointment for this evening." But I don't think we saw camera time with the
I
botanist.
could have swore some character gave his weird little speech though about the void and plants and stuff. Maybe I'm misremembering. I'm pretty sure someone did.
Oh, during the actual threat encounter at Hargrave House, we definitely saw somebody against a mossy wall installation
Oh, okay, yeah.
making a whole speech, but I don't know if we quote unquote
I don't know if
labeled.
yeah, whether you all know that is the botanist out of character, but whether you all know it or not, I guess is open for interpretation. But yeah, I think that's great. You can go see the botanist. That sounds good to me. What do you think, Mr. Constantine, for today?
I think maybe you'll want to go pop over and see that body
Sounds good.
of
Mortuary.
Claire Yarborough.
Yeah, Whitechapel Mortuary gets lots of business. It's very, very active.
This won't be our pal.
No, different mortuary. Yeah, yeah. Or it could be. I don't know. Who knows? We'll see. Maybe he, makes the circuit around. He does need a new companion, so never know. He didn't mind a head being missing, so maybe he won't mind a face being missing either.
Ew. I think I'll go check on the body also.
Okay, sounds good.
Before we leave Hargrave House, would Victoria be able to frame up a vulnerable move with Dominic? Because I require some attention, and he's the only one I trust to be able to carve this thing out of my skin.
Oh yeah, the seedling. Yeah, yeah. Let's do it. I like it. It's the kind of thing I might like. It's a sort of thing that I want to tie to a day move, but no, if you trigger the vulnerable move, I think you are entitled to go ahead and clear it. So let's just see how the scene goes. Go ahead and frame it up, or whoever's vice it's going to be should frame it up. So.
Oh yeah, we both have really complicated vices, don't we?
that would be hard.
Perhaps maybe I could have Jakob attempt it then, because he has several conditions to clear. Is that?
I mean, I would let you clear the condition outside of the context of the vulnerable move if you just want to let Dominic do a day move to try to remove it. I think that's okay as well.
Then let's do that, because I don't think that Dom has any conditions that he necessarily wants to clear. So coming down for pouring myself a cup of tea, and I sit down at the table and I said, "Can you do anything about this? I could hear it growing all last night in my sleep."
Is that the plant? You have the plant in your head.
Yeah, it started to like grow green tendrils up towards the eyeball, and you can see leaves growing behind her ear, and it's definitely embedded in her flesh.
I almost want to leave it. This is quite amusing. But yes, one moment. And he's going to go to the little sideboard off the kitchen and grab the strongest alcohol he can find. And then he'll take a swig. All right, I'm ready.
I thought you were going to use it as an anesthetic. Good. I love it. This is going to be the day move. I think it's going to be with composure, because I think this is more of a sort of fine nerve related work. Also, if you have something from, I would say, either of your personal quarters that you think would be helpful, you could certainly get that advantage as well. But what are you afraid is going to happen if you fail?
I'll look even sexier with new scars.
Not
No,
only don't I remove all the plant, yeah, you lose a bit of an ear.
Oh, very interesting. Okay. Go ahead and roll.
Could I
Okay.
mark a hunter's life here? It's not. It is kind of
Oh,
combat against a
I
supernatural.
like it. Yeah, I think it's pretty good. It lets you also use vitality too, which could be a good maneuver here. You think you have to do something for that, right? You have to narrate
I
something.
do. I have to describe how the weapon has been modified to be particularly effective against creatures of that type.
Oh, good. Yeah, I like this. Yeah.
I wonder if it's less about it being modified for the plant creature and more for very fine, delicate work. The tip is actually extended a little bit into a point for perhaps something very similar to this. And so
like
as
removing
he's
veins from poisonous animals and that kind of thing. Like,
yeah, getting to the most critical part of a creature, perhaps.
I love it. Yeah. What advantage do you get for doing that?
I can increase the result here of a single die roll connected to this combat, as if I had invoked
nice.
the Janus Mask.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that's powerful. Yeah. Go ahead and roll.
That's an 11. So
Make it a
12
12.
plus. And
I'll give you a clue as well. Go ahead and describe how you successfully remove it.
hold your breath, he'll say as he kind of starts to dig the tip in under the. And don't do that, Victoria. For God's sake.
well, it's hard. You don't have a plant growing out of your fucking face. Sorry. Yes. And then she kind of centers herself, and then you kind of see a little black smoke kind of set the vapors, and she calms herself, sitting in a meditative state.
He'll just kind of dig, see the blade slip beneath the skin almost like a scalpel, and he'll just carefully dig and say, this might feel odd, kind of just twist the knife a little bit under the root and start pulling, and dear Christ, does it stop? And then finally the whole of it will come out on the edge of his knife, and he'll hold it up and say, well, that is a first for me.
Oh, I can't tell you how much. Oh, that feels much better. I swear it was already getting into my temporal lobes of brain matter. Oh, thank you. It's like
I'm going to
Actually,
give you.
sinuses too.
I'm going to give you a clue for your 12 plus bonus. The clue is actually something that happens to Ms. Belacqua. I'm not going to make it a condition or anything, but Ms. Belacqua, you can no longer perceive the color green.
Ooh. I
How does
think at that,
yeah.
Victoria is just blinking and blinking. Well, it's not perfect, but I think I'll be okay. I did. Thank you. I couldn't have trusted anyone else with a blade so close to my eyes.
Of course, and that was actually quite satisfying. Perhaps in future we could sell tickets. Someone will watch.
Yes, but I don't think that they should. No, but many thank yous. I think it's very strange.
What's that?
Well, it doesn't look like that's green like the others.
I assure you it is quite verdant.
Don't tease me. I've just had major work done.
No teasing. What about that vase over there?
It looks like nothing. It's a gray beige taupe color.
Well, perhaps this did reach your temporal lobe. My dear, you are colorblind. Or at least one colorblind.
Well, I suppose it's just in furthering the dark entities. At least this way, I won't have the thing, won't hear the roots against my temple in the evenings. Thank you again, I guess. Maybe it
Of
will
course,
return to
and
me.
just think, dogs can not see green either, and they do just fine.
That's a great place to end the scene. The Whitechapel mortuary. I think when you both arrive, or who's going to the mortuary again?
Dom and Jakob.
Yep.
Okay. Oh, let's check in with Lady Florence instead. Lady Florence, where were you headed?
I'm gonna head to the botanist's
Oh, that's
after
right.
party or whatever.
Oh, that's where Miss
we
Block
want to
was
call
going.
it. Yeah.
Okay. We'll do the mortuary.
I've got a
So-
quick question about color vision for a second for Blakwa. Are you seeing? You might need to think on it, but are you seeing the absence of green as just gray, or are you seeing like the item is absent, like a void in that space?
It is just the color absence, but it does look ironically monochromatic.
Got it.
So let's cut over to the mortuary, in fact. And this is a little later in the day, obviously, when you get there. And you see a mortuary worker in his sort of white, jumper or little suit, kind of. And he's sitting outside the entrance to the mortuary, which is kind of a side entrance of a building, smoking a cigarette when the two of you approach.
Well, Jakob, this is your chance to flex those lawyerly muscles.
Interesting. Sure. I'll walk up as businesslike as I can and say, excuse me, we are here investigating the death of Miss Yarborough of Whitechapel, and we're here to inspect the body.
He says, "Oh, well, get in line, I suppose. There's already someone in looking at the body."
Oh, who is it this time? There's always somebody bumbling about paperwork.
Dr. Gastrell?
Give Dom a meaningful look. I say, I can't believe you to the worker. Say, I can't believe you. I understand he's got credentials. He seems doctorly, but he's a bit of a hack. If you don't mind, we're going to go in there, make sure he doesn't damage anything. The one, I'll put your job on the line.
And in future, perhaps you may not wish to allow him without supervision.
He's like, well, what does that mean?
He has grown quite fond of subjects in the past.
He says, that is a little bit disturbing in its ambiguity. But, well, where are you from? Like, who do you represent?
I'll turn to Jakob.
Yeah, I'll rattle off, the credentials of Walsh, Florence, and Walsh, and say that we're representing some family members of the deceased who are not your typical Whitechapel denizens who are, wanting to keep things quiet, if you understand.
He says, listen, it's going to take me about 20 minutes to finish this and 2 more cigarettes. I'm going to turn this way, and wherever you go after that, whatever you do, up to you.
Sounds fabulous.
Much appreciated.
When you get inside the mortuary, indeed, Dr. Gastrell is there. They have an examination room. They have pulled Clara's body out and laid it onto a table. You can hear him before you see any of this. Oh, how I wish I could have seen you before. When I could have seen your face, Ms. He looks a little bored, or a little clipboard. Yarborough. A very common name for what was no doubt a very uncommon beauty. Of course, I suppose I'll never know. No one will ever know. Nevertheless, beauty is not just skin deep. Thank goodness for you. What do you two do right now at this point?
I do need one reminder. Did none of us keep that head as a personal quarters item?
Oh, the body Dr. Gastrell had is possessed by a demon that Victoria set loose on London in order so that they would torment Greco the second sighted boy.
We have not followed up on that
loosely
yet.
attached the head.
Yeah, we don't know exactly what's going on with that situation either, by the way. It's a good reminder of it.
Oh, so you reattach the head. All right, I've forgotten that. Thanks.
I think Dom will just whisper to Jakob, we could just stuff him in a drawer. They wouldn't think anything's out of place.
Yeah, and my memory is Jakob has actually not met Dr. Gastrell, I think.
No, you were there at dinner with them.
No, you were at dinner.
Yeah.
Oh, he was at dinner. Okay, thank you. Sorry. Now I remember that. Thank you. Yeah, he's kind of tiresome, isn't he?
I have an emptiness in my heart, my dear. My
Give him a
last
new one.
companion, well, she left me. What am I to do? How am I to find fullness again? Fullness of spirit? The heart wants what it wants.
Turn to Dom and I say, the corpses of London are just not safe with this guy about. I feel like we might need to take dramatic measures.
I am a large fan of dramatic measures when it comes to Dr. Gastrell.
I want to cut over to Lady Florence and Victoria around the same time, later in the day. At the legendary conservatory. This place has become something of, well, before Jazad got here, it was the talk of the town. It was a thing whispered of by people who had seen it or experienced it. But now that Jazad's arrived, it's sort of second order of, London occult society business. But nevertheless, it's still something to see. It is a forest of exotic plants pressing against tall glass ceilings, moss and dirt covering every surface, seedlings bursting almost violently through the cracks of flagstones. And everywhere, sparks of emerald buds peering from the foliage, though of course, Ms. Balakwa, you can't perceive them as that color. Let's paint the scene a bit here. The botanist has clearly lost control of their work. What signs show that they continue to pursue their experiments anyway?
I imagine a table has been quite overgrown, and you can see where there have been just efforts to hack clear a space and set new vials to work.
There's a long row of burlap sacks and crates that are, each labeled with different type of fertilizer, and uh, the plants have just erupted through them, like kind of grown towards the fertilizer, burst out of it. But there's also some tidy little like serving size gardening shovels, sort of tucked into the top of each bag.
There are these platforms that are now suspended from the ceiling, where it felt like, okay, the plants can't get to these because they're hanging from the ceiling. And even those, the chains that suspend them, you can see vines starting to make their way down.
There are a number of gardeners here. You can both immediately tell these gardeners are people who have been pollinated by the emerald orchid. They have all the clear telltale signs, tendrils growing under their flesh. Their eyes, for the ones who are most far gone, have turned this vivid green. If you can see green. But interestingly, Ms. Balacqua, to you perhaps, Albertina Welk is there. Not dressed in her normal, celebratory attire, but rather she's dressed in old coveralls, a straw hat, soil-caked gloves. And she's working. What do you do?
I lean over to Lady Florence and quietly ask, can I presume that these individuals are much possessed, as were the ones that came to Hargrave House last night?
So you're saying that the eye, the glowing green eye, you can't tell that that's green.
They're glowing, but I just need to... Dominic was kind enough to help me remove one of these pesky seedlings, but it does seem that now I lack green in general.
It's a glowing gray or a like Lady
We can
Florence is just like
discuss the
obsessed with this.
specifics. Right now, it looks like a dull, cloudy day in which the sun is behind the clouds and I could see the light, but I can't see the color. But we look quite conspicuous, arguing over the semantics at the moment. I just needed to know the status.
Someone says to you, a woman, you don't look like you're dressed for gardening. The woman who speaks is the only other person there who's not dressed as a gardener herself. She has dark coppery skin, cascading jet black hair with almost an indigo sheen to it, captivating hazel eyes, and layered shawls and faded colors intermingling to form new patterns almost. And she's sitting at a painter's easel and she's painting the scene that you're all standing around in. She says, I have a special dispensation to be here and not have to do the work. I'm not sure that the two of you will be given that sort of leeway.
Oh, forgive us the interruption. I stand aside so I'm not in her scene and interrupting her view. We were invited yesterday evening, but were somewhat delayed. My dear friend Albertina over there said that the botanist was expecting us.
She puts her paintbrush down and she says, I think you'll find that the botanist is not the sort to welcome visitors freely, and those that he does welcome, I wouldn't say you're going to find the most engaging conversationalist inside his shed. And she points over in the direction of the shed. But you're welcome to go give it an attempt. I'm not sure if the gardeners will let you in. They are busy at their work, to be sure, but they do, well, turn aggressively protective when needed.
I kind of want to peer over her shoulder at the painting
Yeah.
to see, like, is this something that she just started? Is this something she's been working on for a long time? I kind of want to get a sense of, yeah, how long she's been
Make the
here
information
doing
move.
this.
Make the information move, and you're going to make it with sensitivity.
Oh boy.
What'd you
Doesn't
get?
even matter. It's a 3. Damn these trophy dice.
I'm still giving you a clue,
Okay.
because what's going to happen to you is indeed a clue. She's painting with colors you've never seen before. The viewing of colors you have never seen before has the potential to shatter your sanity. In any case, you're rolling the day move. What are you afraid is going to happen if you fail?
I think that my like perception of color would be so bonkers that I can't even walk right. Like it just is completely disorienting.
I'll take it. Go ahead and roll with sensitivity again.
Again?
Yeah.
Try a different set of dice. Oh God, it's the same result.
Ms. Balakwa, Lady Florence, makes the mistake of peering over this artist's shoulder to look at the canvas, and her face, Lady Florence's face, that is, goes pale and stricken. A sweat breaks out on her brow, and she begins clutching at her eyes and collapses to the ground, screaming, not in agony, but almost like a strange ecstasy. Unless you're putting on a Janus mask, Lady Florence.
It feels like I should.
It's funny, this is usually Victoria's move, and she takes a little bit of delight.
Yeah, I'll plunk it. I'm so close to being dead, but
Everything is as I've described it, except the clutching at your eyes and falling down, raving lunacy.
well, at least I'm still standing.
I am going to give you a condition, though, which is
Mhm.
distorted color perception.
Mm.
But what do you do? How do you react?
I think it is still like disarming, disturbing to see this, obviously. I have been so obsessed with Victoria's perception and vision that I am probably like ushering her over because I want to understand how she sees what I think that I'm seeing. Yeah, innocently leading her into the trap as well, I guess. Sorry, Sarah. But yeah.
Yeah, Ms. Balakwa. So it is a little different because you can't see green. I'm not sure how that would affect things, except to say that I'll probably just put you at disadvantage on the roll. So mechanically, I know how it affects things. It's going to be
I
the same
wonder
thing,
if
though, seeing these impossible colors.
I wonder if I'm not aware that the green is even influencing what I'm seeing, that I'm seeing perhaps different colors because this supernatural green pigment isn't there, but all of the colors are so vibrant and packed full of pigment, so to speak, that I don't know that it's not green. Sensitivity with disadvantage, you said?
Yes. And what are you afraid is going to happen if you fail? Is that what you're afraid of? Or
Oh, no, I'm afraid that I'm just going to continue to lose colors one by one until I actually can only see black and white. Hooray.
Let's see what you got.
Disadvantage is a 6 plus 3 is 9.
Okay, that's not too bad.
Not too bad.
I'm going to give you the same condition as Lady Florence, the distorted color perception. You're even more distorted color perception.
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm going to give you a different condition.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to give you a condition called the spirit in the pigment. You see something behind the colors. You sense something. The entities sense something. How do you experience this?
It's the supernatural equivalent of the Scooby-Doo eyes cut out in the wall following you, or much like the Mona Lisa as you move in space. I can see the eyes of the participants in this painting, the gardeners, focus on me and follow me as I move away.
We'll come back to this. Dr. Gastrell is now holding Clara Yarborough's hand. The two of you still have not confronted him. He's holding her hand and he says, "Oh, there's nothing like a hand stiffened by rigor mortis to make you feel anchored in this world. That is what love does for me. If only I could know what you look like. Perhaps we could get you another face. Though I'm not sure who'd be willing to give it up. Perhaps I should find the person who did this to you. They say Sally No Face did this to you. Maybe she has a few faces laying around that she's not using."
I turn to Dom and I say, you know, in Wales, we treat our livestock better than this. I'm
So
usually
I've heard
one
of those
for.
in Wales.
I'm sorry, say it again.
So I've heard of those in Wales.
I'm usually one for the prospect of reform, that there's a chance to make amends and change your ways. But you know, seeing your treatment of Julius, this might be another similar incident. How do you feel? Or similar circumstance?
I think Dom will take a step back and put his hand up and say, "Mr. Walsh, we might almost be starting to become friends." And then he's going to stride into the room with Dr. Gastrell.
Is there anything we can learn from him first, though? I kind of follow you, like wiggling a finger.
Dr. Gastrell.
You.
Me.
You.
Me too.
Who were I don't care about you. You who were an accessory
Oh.
to the crime that was committed against me and my love.
Accessory. I like to think of myself as more of a feature role than that.
A lapdog to the witch Balakwa, who stole her from me.
Well, perhaps she's still out there waiting for you to rescue her.
No. She's in torment. I hear her calling to me in my dreams every night.
And that isn't just the girl you've locked up in your basement.
Mr. Constantine, you misunderstand me. You misunderstand love.
Quite possibly, but I doubt I misunderstand your iteration of it.
Why are you here?
We're investigating, naturally. Why are you here?
I was asked to come examine the body by my associate in Scotland Yard, who is going to be here momentarily, by the way.
Oh, good.
So if you're
I
not
look
here on
forward to
official
telling him.
business, just know that you might be chased out soon enough.
I do enjoy a good chase.
Hmm.
Perhaps from what I heard of your quite distressing mutterings, we could be of help to each other. It seems we're both curious about this Sally No Face.
Go on.
You wish to find her, them? So do I. Simple.
How can we be of help to each other, Mr. Constantine?
Well, I am a decent tracker. You allegedly successfully completed medical school. Perhaps your clues could lead a path for me to follow.
I want the day move to enlist Dr. Gastrell in your inquiries. What are you afraid is going to happen if you fail?
He'll sick Scotland Yard on us.
Yeah, go ahead and roll with presence.
7.
He says, all right. All right. I think we can be of help to each other, you and I. And you as well, I suppose. One condition.
I'm listening.
You convince Ms. Balakwa to let me meet her. Not Ms. Balakwa, her.
I believe that could be arranged.
You hear coming into the mortuary. Do you think it really sets a good example to be smoking in the vicinity of the bodies, young man? The mortuary worker. No. You're right. Terribly sorry. D.I. Pettigrew. And he comes in. He's followed by a detective inspector from Scotland Yard wearing a fussy tweed jacket with a fussy little mustache, and he stands a fussy 5'6", and he's like, Peter, in all of our endeavors, professional and otherwise, it is important to pay attention to the details. Look at you, man. You look a mess. Fix your collar. Put out that cigarette. Comb your hair. Do you even know what a comb is? Have you ever been acquainted with this tool? I'm not convinced you have been. I hear voices. Dr. Gastrell? Who's in there with you?
Dom's going to lean close to Jacob and say, oh, I wish to break him.
D.I. Pettigrew comes in.
When that time's right.
D.I. Pettigrew comes in and says, all right then, what are the three of you up to?
Dr.
And
Gastrell
he
here
sees
is
Jacob and says,
examining
oh,
the
sorry,
body.
the four of you. What are the four of you up to?
The good doctor here is examining the body, and we are his associates.
Intriguing. I am the sort of man who prides himself on knowing well who is where, who is what, who is when. Indeed, who is who, and I do not know who you are.
This will be fun. Dominic Constantine, at your service.
Noted.
And Solicitor Walsh of Walsh, Florence, and Walsh.
Mm. Very well. Mr. Constantine, I assume you're not a solicitor's assistant. What do you do?
I dig graves, sir.
Yes, I would have guessed that by the rather hard, calloused, rugged nature of your hands. That's the sort of detail that doesn't escape my eye.
Jakob casually tucks his hands into his pockets, hoping they don't get inspected.
Well, I feel like I've interrupted something here.
Oh, not at all, sir. We were just discussing the rather bizarre nature of this crime.
Yes, yes. Well, I don't think your lay opinions on the matter are needed when it comes to forensic science and criminal investigation, so I will thank you all to make your report through all the official channels. I'm going to confer with Dr. Gastrell, who I gather is your superior in this situation. Dr. Gastrell, if we could have some privacy, please.
Jakob, any legal assistance here?
Yeah. Let's go with a bluff here. Or try to. I'll say, DI Detective Inspector Pettigrew. This is at the moment I know there's a criminal investigation, of course, but the family has some private concerns about the condition of the body that they'd like tended to first. So you can give us a little bit longer. We can give you a report on what we determined.
What is it about the state of the body in particular they're worried about? Is it the fact that it has no face?
And whether this is indeed Clara Yarborough.
Are you suggesting this is someone else?
That's the question at hand.
An intriguing theory. Noted.
I mean, do you see any similarities to prior victims that make you believe this is connected?
Go ahead and make a information move with composure.
What is my composure? 1 second. 1. All right. Oh no, a 4.
We shall come back to this. No, I got it. I know we're not going to come back to this. We will, but before we leave. D.I. Pettigrew is leaning over Clara Yarborough, examining the body, when Dr. Gastrell plunges a scalpel into his neck. Just blood goes spraying everywhere. And we'll come back to this in a bit. Well, Lady Florence and Miss Belacqua, things are getting very strange at the conservatory. Let's have one more scene before we go to break. You see this, it's a fairly nondescript looking shed, which apparently is where the botanist can be found. You have all of these gardeners who are occasionally glancing at you, keeping an eye on you, but otherwise focused on their work. What are the two of you doing right now?
I would like to propose that Lady Florence, being in the state that she is, allow Victoria to kind of, the equivalent of trying to guide a drunk puppy, very haphazardly guide her towards, I think, the exit and not actually towards the shed at all, in the effect that perhaps if we do a really awkward, slow, stumbling bit about the room, we might be able to pick up some clues before we leave this place. Like, what kind of fertilizers? Do we see any particular ingredients? Or
if Lady Florence is
varietals of
okay with this
plants?
plan, I'll let you have an information move on it.
So the twist that I will put into it is like Lady Florence is going into explorer mode right now. And
Uh-oh.
so she's got a notebook out and she is investigating and trying to document all of this stuff. And so she might be malleable to Victoria's nudgings in that Lady Florence is curious about Lady Florence's perception since she also has the color disperception, misperception, and the green thing going on. So she's kind of like trying to compare notes and is maybe, but I feel like she's creeping towards the shed generally. Like there's sort of like a gravity towards whatever is going on in the shed. Um,
I will give Ms. Balakwa the information move and Lady Florence a day move to get into the shed.
okay.
It'll count for both of you getting in the shed, but I think that's how we can kind of divide up the work here. So, Ms. Balakwa, go ahead and roll with composure. And I'm going to put you at disadvantage because I think that you've already described how you're being watched in a sort of strange way. So
Between the gardeners and the painting and all eyes
Yeah.
on me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're most beloved. So, yeah.
My cross to bear. Did you say composure?
I think composure's right. Yeah.
That's a 5 plus 1 is 6.
Mm. You don't get very far. You go around a corner, around a hedge, and find yourself surrounded on all sides. Well, by hedge on two sides and by pollinated gardeners on the other two, in front and back. They are pointing their spades and trowels at you menacingly, and they speak in unison. We will return you to the soil, intruders. And they begin closing in. Let's take a 5-minute break. We'll come to this garden situation in a bit. But back at the mortuary, Peter, which is the apparent name of the other mortuary worker, he screams and begins running for the door when he sees Dr. Gastrell plunge a scalpel into D.I. Pettigrew's neck. Dr. Gastrell, covered in blood, yells at you, Mr. Constantine. Don't let him escape, Mr. Constantine. Kill him.
Let me ask, do I have an option to check a mask and make that not such a catastrophically bad die roll?
You can absolutely mark a mask and none of this happens. It's up to you.
I think I'm going to check a mask, and I've got a I think a pretty good explanation for what happens here.
What was the role that you were doing? An information move or a day move?
Information move, trying to suss out clues.
So you a clue, yeah, okay.
Yeah. Speaking of that, I have the Vault of the Cosmic Mind thing where I discover an extra clue on the information move, even on a miss. So
okay, good.
Plan on an additional one. My explanation for the mask here, like what really happens. I'm kind of picturing that Dr. Gastrell must be pulling this scalpel from.
I think he's going for it. Yeah.
Right, but Pettigrew probably doesn't have line of sight on that hand and the scalpel for a moment. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to pull off one of my gloves and put my hand over Gastrell's hand, the one with holding the scalpel, and say, kind of try to whisper to him, say, Dr. Gastrell, I mentioned I'm a solicitor. I'm also the solicitor to Lord Jazad, and point upwards, and then my fingers split into the, doubling up, so that he should see and feel that on his own hands. And I say, you would really want to not do that right now. Pettigrew is serving a greater purpose.
I like that. I was going to make you roll a day move, but I like it as you've described it, so we'll let it ride. Dr. Gastrell backs off It did look like he was about to kill D.I. Pettigrew. And D.I. Pettigrew opens up. He says, yes, well, we have actually learned quite a lot about these so-called Sally No-Face killings. More even than the papers would have you believe. I'm not at liberty, of course, to share everything I know. Nevertheless, I can't help but feel slightly swollen with pride because of the amount of work we've managed to do on this particular case, and I do desperately want to share it with you. Are you trustworthy?
Oh, yes, indubitably.
Yes. Dr. Kestrel, are you quite all right? You look a little peaked. No.
Can I add one little thing in here?
Sure.
It's partially a question. So if I'm checking the moss-covered gate as my mask, blah, 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 I gain a key to the 5 vaults of Tarthor.
Indeed.
Can I think normally I don't gain that key until end of session questions, right?
You can't assign it until the end of the session questions, yeah.
Can I, in a fictional way, sort of pre-assign a thing, because I'm still trying to look for ways to accidentally discover my Martian heritage here. And one of the things that I could have is that my skin is impenetrable. So can we say that Dr. Gastrell shocked is like, ooh, and tries to put away the scalpel really fast, and it should have sliced my fingers.
It didn't, yeah.
And
I
it
like
didn't.
that.
And so I'm kind of like, whoa, that's different.
Yeah, it's good.
All right.
J.I. Pettigrew snaps his fingers at you. Pay attention. I'm about to tell you very important, indeed confidential information about this investigation in the dim hope that you might be able to reciprocate with some help of your own. And he does indeed give you 2 clues per your move about the Sally No-Face killings. I gotta see the clues you have already though so I don't accidentally double up. Let's see here.
Gold embossed card, a novel of Chaudhry Limited,
Okay, good.
Vision of Black Veins.
Indeed. He explains to you that at every site, at every killing, were found love letters, florid love letters, increasingly florid love letters, with the most sort of loquacious and filthy being found at Clara's place. All of them unsigned, but addressed to someone named Gregory. That's the first clue. The second clue, he says, I have a legendary nose in Scotland Yard. My powers of olfactory perception are nearly without peer. I say nearly because we do employ a number of very capable hounds, and I cannot match them in this regard. Nevertheless, I'm quite good. It's one of my many talents. Talents, both blessed with at birth and well earned through hard, rigorous practice. And I noticed at every crime scene a very distinct smell. Perfume. But refined, not the sort of cheap smell you would find in a bordello. Not that I would know, just what I've been told about such places. No, this perfume is very expensive. From Paris. What would a poor washerwoman or street sweeper, what need would they have for very expensive perfume from Paris? None, I would say, which is why I think that it is relevant to the investigation.
Fascinating. I do seem to remember reading that there were some new laundry detergents about that maybe those are provoking your sense of smell.
Perhaps you should read less. Now,
Speaking of reading, I feel like I heard that Miss Yarborough was illiterate. But it's fascinating nonetheless. Thank you, Detective Inspector.
well, those are 2 clues. And I think Dr. Castrell is ready to excuse himself from the scene. What are you doing right now, Mr. Constantine?
I think he'll say to Dr. Gastrow, someone will call your office later and we will discuss this matter. And he'll turn to D.I. Pettigrew and say, I am fascinated by these skills you have practiced and those you were born with. Perhaps we could discuss those a bit more.
Yes, well, perhaps when we have more time. I'm a very busy man tonight. What do you mean tonight?
Perhaps dinner.
Dinner? Are you suggesting I go out to dinner with you, sir?
It appears so, yes.
You should know, sir, that I keep a very, very strict schedule.
I like that in a man.
And he's like,
Jakob's going to grab Dr. Gastrell and kind of fade back towards the door.
he says, Sir, are you trying to seduce me? A servant of the Queen?
Don't let my occupation confuse you, sir. I am.
What were you again, a
Dominic
ditch digger?
Constantine.
Or something?
I dig graves and fill them occasionally. I'd be happy to tell you more.
I'm not sure I want to know more, sir.
I assure you, it will be entertaining.
Are you trying to get him to go somewhere with you tonight?
I am.
Make the day move. What are you afraid is going to happen if you fail?
Embarrassment. I would like to play my in want of privilege move here to leverage my family's name.
Oh, very good. I like that. I'm into it. Yeah.
So that's with presence. 15.
Nice. Constantine. Constantine. I know that name. I believe we had some Constantines that helped us down at Whitehall a number of years ago with some rather strange, unexplained murders, even more unexplainable than normal in a stinking city.
The very same, Detective Inspector, I assure you.
You are more than a grave digger, aren't you, sir?
All I said is I dig graves.
Yes. A play on words, a twist of phrase that I, amazingly enough, did not pick up on. Very well. I will go to dinner with you, Mr. Constantine.
It will be your pleasure.
I owe you a benefit as well. He says, first, though, I have I have a meeting at Resplendent, if you can believe it, beforehand.
Oh, well, I have yet to see it myself. Would you mind some company?
Yes, you can certainly come with me. I think that would be terrific. We give regular reports now to Resplendent as part of our, well, as part of the new ministry.
That is intriguing, perhaps questionable, but this will be fun.
Very good. Ms. Belacqua, Lady Florence, you're surrounded by pollinated gardeners. What do you do?
I would like to check a mask.
Very well. Instead, I owe you a clue. And Lady Florence, you're going to try to get inside the botanist's shed. I'm not going to make you roll a day move. I think Ms. Belacqua putting on a mask is sufficient drama for this scene right now. I will say, though, that the condition, Ms. Belacqua, I'm going to give you is you are now being watched by the gardeners, specifically.
And then I did just have a follow-up question of clues, because Lady Florence looked at the painting and then failed 2 sensitivity rolls, and then I did an investigation roll of the painting and rolled a 9. Do I get a clue for that too?
Yeah, you're
Or was the colors the clue?
no, you were rolling day move to just
Day move.
yeah, you were doing day
Understood.
move on
Thank you.
that,
Thank
yeah.
you.
Lady Florence got the information move because she was originally just trying to see what she could find out. Lady Florence, I do want to know, though, just describe how you were able to get the two of you into the shed without the pollinated gardener stopping you.
Ooh, that's an interesting question. I think it is just sort of Lady Florence's boldness that maybe just takes them aback, even with their state of possession, that she just kind of like is looking them down and like just examining them and taking notes and like just being like overly inquisitive about them as she's like, and she's comparing them to the plants and that type of thing, that they start to feel awkward about the whole situation, because she's just like investigating them and just like, oh, and it looks like this one has a vine that reaches out from its nostril, while this one it's coming out of its mouth. I wonder where the source. And she's like poking around at them to a point that like, yeah, like
They start to
kind
like line up for inspection at a certain point.
and then she just kind of like wanders like, yeah, that she's just kind of like slowly shifting the attention more and more towards the shed and just picks everything up in the momentum of this, even though it's this very like slow, drawn out momentum.
No, I like it.
Victoria slowly follows behind, and all of the gardener's eyes just move with her, like the painting.
You slip into the shed, and it's a very small space. Probably like, I mean, it is like just shed size, like one of those sheds you get at Home Depot or whatever, right? Just enough room for a few people. And the botanist, who is indeed sort of interwoven with moss and vines into this mossy wall at the far end of the shed. The botanist is an apparent man. He has a stained waistcoat, soiled gloves. The space is just filled with like scattered equipment and tools, just things overturned. It looks like there was a brawl in here. He's sort of twitching at the extremities, roots sprouting from his sleeves, eye sockets blooming with emerald petals. He looks like the sort of person who gazed deep into the space where seeds awaken and seek the light, and something gazed back. And he's almost just like robotically repeating, "As our petals unfurl, we rejoice in our new form, knowing the seeds of a new awakening germinate in the rich soil of decaying dreams, for nothing truly dies when all is animated by the same sparkling void, each one branching out to touch the light, the source, the true path that is ever onward through the endless shimmering green. As our petals unfurl, we rejoice in our new form," and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
What do you do?
So Lady Florence is still kind of like caught up in explorer mode, and she sees the botanist and just says, "Ooh, now this one is interesting." And I think I've got like a sort of like a walking cane that's more of a fashion accessory than anything else. So I kind of walk up to the botanist and start just kind of like poking at him with the stick, not in probably like at the shins, something like that, just trying to determine like what his responsiveness is to things. And a side question, I have this weird, I can see colors that I've never seen before. Is he exhibiting any of that? I guess is my side question in this as well.
I like that. Yeah, I think that's really good. Let's do the information move.
Okay.
I'm not gonna put you at disadvantage, but I am going to say that you're gonna be rolling with, I would say, reason, the way you've described your actions up to this point. Let's see how you do.
I would like to, as I do this, I've got a little bit of this hallucinatory cake from the
Oh
cafe
yeah.
the other day.
Yeah.
I want to take a little bite of that and see if that enhances my
Oh yeah.
perception
There you
or
go.
shifts my perception of all of this as
Yeah.
well.
All right. Yeah, go for it. Advantage.
And that is I think reason is a +1, 12.
Oh, nice. The eyes of the botanist change from emerald green to Venusian blue. And the botanist says, in Jazad's voice, "Lady Florence, here with the inimitable Miss Belacqua as well. How fantastic. This Emerald Orchid situation is most fascinating. I have not seen this species in many, many years, and certainly not here. I am having a little bit of a gathering tonight. Perhaps the two of you would like to join."
We did miss our outing last night, so it would
Ms.
be.
Belacqua, has Lady Florence told you of our relationship?
Ooh, I lift up the stick and like thunk him in between his legs.
Jazad doesn't care. He's just speaking through the botanist right now.
You know, Lady Florence and I haven't had a chance to discuss the particulars, although your daughter does seem quite charming.
Yes, well, Tunara is a difficult, willful girl, but I wouldn't have a child be any other way. I myself was a bit of a hellraiser back in the day.
I look back
Lady
at Miss
Florence and
Belagua.
Lady Florence and I, we were a legendary romance, Miss Belacqua. Legendary. They still write stories of it and create plays inspired by it on Venus.
I look back
How
at Miss
simply
Belagua.
delicious.
I look back at Miss Belagua and I say, it was good, but it wasn't the best. And his daughter, that one is not mine.
This is the little game Lady Florence likes to play. She tries to make herself, it's a defense mechanism, is what it is. She tries to put people down to make herself feel better about herself. The fact of the matter is, Lady Florence and I, it was a tremendous romance. We gallivanted across worlds. We went to the highest highs, to the lowest lows, the deepest depths, the furthest reaches. All the while, professing our love every day for each other. Oh, you should have seen her, Miss Belacqua.
Victoria turns to Lady Florence
She
and
was giddy.
conspicuously asks, is he talking about space?
A besotted schoolgirl in my arms.
Or is he graphically describing things that I would rather not be privy to?
Lady Florence, you can
She
see
has a
her-
tough exterior, but don't you doubt. She is soft. She is romantic. She's a delicate flower, not unlike your emerald orchid.
my cheeks are flush, and I turn around and just walk out of the shed and out of the conservatory altogether.
Now that
I'm
she's
afraid-
gone, Miss Belacqua, you might be wondering what I'm doing here.
I have really so many things to wonder about that I have only learned in the last 30 seconds, but please, Jazad, please tell me what you're doing here.
Well, I believe the Emerald Orchid might have some properties that might be of use to me in my plans. My plans for London and the world.
Yes, I'm sure that you have grand aspirations, considering how rooted you've become in our government.
A fine choice of words, Ms. Belacqua.
You'll
Very
find me
clever.
a cutting quit and a cutting person in general, Jazad. What do you want?
Oh, look at the time.
Give your daughter my best. I walk out as well.
I do owe you a clue, however, Lady Florence, in addition to that, what was a mastermind clue. On your way out, let's see here. Let me check your current clues, just so I don't double up.
I think I checked a mask and I'm owed a clue as well. I think we each get one. If I'm not mistaken.
Yes. Oh, do I owe you one as well? What was your die roll from when you were?
I marked it up from a 6.
Oh, Ben, what were you doing? I don't remember the scene. Just like
I had been surrounded by hedge people while I was trying to like slowly turn about the room and look for substances.
Oh, that's right.
Or
Yeah, that's right.
mhm.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So 2 clues then. The first I'm going to give you is going to be, a pretty straightforward clue that you notice, Ms. Belacqua. At the conservatory, there is a dog that is also clearly infected by the Emerald Orchid. So the fact that it can affect animals is a clue. And then on your way out, as you're leaving in a huff, Lady Florence, you will notice that among the sort of strewn about tools and equipment and things in the shed, there is what appears to be a box or like a tray with little samples of vividly colored beetles, the shells of which have been ground into pigment. And I think this will basically wrap up our day phase. Let's go over to the dusk. Are you thinking you all might try to answer a question during this dusk phase? Because if so, we can take a break.
Is it time to answer the monochromatic men?
That's
We
done
answered
already. That's ready to
that.
go.
We just need to resolve it.
This is
What we do
resolved.
need to do is answer this Emerald Orchid.
Oh,
Um,
interesting. So sorry, hang on. Explain one thing to me, maybe, because yeah, the answering the question is just then dictating the direction towards the resolution. Got it.
Yeah, you have now the opportunity to resolve the threat by stopping
Okay.
the ritual.
And can you answer only one question in a typical phase?
Answer as many as you want.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
So if you're thinking about going after the Emerald Orchid, you have enough clues now, I think, to go after one of these questions. We could take a 10-minute break if you all want to examine the clues and think about a theory.
Yeah, let's do that.
All right, we'll take 10. Okay, we're back. Let's take a look at our dawn or dusk phase rather. All right, first thing, do we have any moves that need to be resolved? You gonna call in the Royal Explorers Club, Lady Florence?
Oh, are we going to need them? Are we doing a confrontation tonight? And what do I've
Yeah,
got?
it kind of depends on what you get, what you might be doing, I suppose.
Yeah, so maybe hold on that.
I mean, possibly just getting 2 night phases with Gareth Kellogg could be handy, but depending on what you want to do.
Because we could close both of them out, right?
Yeah. Well, we can come back to it.
Okay.
We just have to at some point make a decision. Yeah. We're going to skip talking about Hargrave House today and go straight to answer a question. So it sounds like you are going to try to answer one of the Emerald Orchid questions. And before we got on the call, some skepticism was expressed about your ability to answer a question. But nevertheless, we will see what we can do here. Sarah, you had a possible theory here. Which question are you thinking about?
So we think that we're trying to answer the 6 question, the how is the orchid controlling and affecting the host, and how can it be cured?
Right. And then allows you to resolve the threat by studying the behavior of those affected and then creating an antidote. Love that. We should probably review the clues, especially for people watching the video. So there was this French book about unusual flowers, Les Fleurs de Mal. So that's one of your clues. There is uranium glass with an orchid motif that was found somewhere. There's another book called Herald of the Emerald Seed, which I'll remind you was an occult manifesto describing an intelligent plant-like, quote, glowing messiah, which apparently will guide humanity into a, quote, vibrant resurrection. A lot going on there. There's another book, Principles of Botanical Science, which was stained with an iridescent fluid. We have these sort of impossible colors. The orchid can affect animals as well as people, and a tray of vividly colored beetles which were being used to grind into pigments. So, what do we think here?
So my initial tee off is going to be that I think that there is some sort of extra dimensional force that is trying to force its way into this world, and it's using, like, it's a being of light. Okay, so that's going to hopefully guide us towards these clues about colors and plants simultaneously.
That's a good approach, I think. Yeah. A good start. So we're thinking that would explain the...
Well, we talked a little bit about the color green and my absence of it. And I had postulated that perhaps that when it was forcibly removed from me, it took my perception of green as well, leaving me more vulnerable to reinfection. Because all of the orchids are green, and green is how, and if I can't see green, much like a dog can't see green, that maybe I would be more vulnerable.
Oh, that's interesting. So you're saying if you can't see green, you're more vulnerable? It seems like if you can't see green, you'd be less vulnerable, right?
Well, if you have green things coming after you trying to burrow in your skin and you can't see the color green, it seems like a vulnerability to me.
But alternatively, it could be that once Dom took the plant out of you, what he really did was he took out the part of your brain that makes you infectable by the plant, right? The part that uses the green color to get you, right? So that is another way of looking at it, I would think, because that speaks to an antidote, right? Which is something related to the color green. But yeah.
Well, this brings back to the dogs can't see green.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, well, okay. So
Other things.
a being of light using the combination of plants and colors that kind of explains, like, yeah, a being of light would operate through both of those ways, which is intriguing to me. I mean, is the being the herald of the Emerald Seed? Is it the glowing Messiah? I mean,
I just backing up on the dog and not being able to see green a bit. What if the color that is actually affecting people, it's actually the gray beneath the green, but we can't actually perceive its actual color.
oh, interesting. Okay, I'm liking that. I think that's intriguing. That would help explain the distorted color perception as well as what happened to Ms. Balakwa. An interesting idea for sure. I mean, the question is, how is the orchid controlling its host, right?
So it's something encoded in the color beneath the green.
Mm-hmm.
I
It
got
certainly
something
has.
that might be too sciencey, but in real life here, not fictional life, chlorophyll and hemoglobin have the same porphyrin ring with a different iron molecule in the middle. So your blood has iron in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
Chlorophyll has magnesium in the center.
Mm-hmm.
So is it possible that there's sort of a biochemical, the control is a biochemical change in what's going on in our blood once exposed? It's, sort of, this wouldn't work, but implanting some chlorophyll into blood or whatever.
Yeah, yeah. That's interesting. Now make it Victorian. Like, how do the Victorians understand this? Right.
Right,
It's changing the
exactly.
color of our bile.
Yeah. That's an intriguing idea as well. Yeah. I mean, we're dancing around some interesting ideas. I think we need to, like, make it really sharp here, though. And, like, I mean, because the game wants a really singular answer to the question, right? Like, how is it doing it, basically? Like, what is the specific thing it's doing to control people, to take over their minds? And then how can that be cured? So it's kind of a two-parter. And if we're saying it could be, the answer is as simple as it's exposing you to this unseeable color, that it is almost like a signal that it uses to control people. But once you can see the color, you are no longer controlled. Possibly, maybe that's what happened to Ms. Balakwa. I don't know.
Right, once
Or
you can
maybe
see
it's
the
not that you're
color,
no longer controllable, but you can see the actual danger here, so you can better protect yourself. That's how the dog is still infected, but Victoria could say, oh, it's that gray, and avoid it, or paint over
Interesting.
it, or whatever.
Yeah.
So could we make the distinction that the plants and the green of the plants is the sort of like control factor, is the infection, and then we've got all these things around like pigments, and that feels like maybe that's the antidote side then, that like just jumping off what's been said, is that like being able to see that, like essentially like take the this is a very They Live type of thing, where like you put on the glasses and you can see the color and then you know what the threat is, that seeing that pigment represented gives you some like toughness to the plants themselves, which would explain why Lady Florence and Miss Balakwa also have this perception and have not turned into the gardeners effectively. And even the woman painting the painting, right, has not changed, because she is looking directly at the paint and the pigment that's being, beetles eat plants too, right? So there's kind of, maybe there's some kind of like symbol there with the consumption of the color.
Well, if we're presuming that the green has some sort of a hypnotic control, or that it is somehow affecting people mentally to make them susceptible to be infected with these plants, right? Because everybody's a buzz about this color and all of it.
And that
Then
speaks to this idea of, if we're still going with this light being entity, that the glowing Messiah, that speaks to the idea of color, of light, and of plants and color, right? Like I think that explains the Emerald Orchid as its vessel, right?
so then what if this is just the color this entity is using to control us, but actually expresses color in the vast spectrum beyond our human understanding? So when we look directly at it, we're like, oh my God, this is seeing the face of, uh, this light being that we can't understand. And it is inoculating, or it is somehow altering our perception to, like, we no longer on the same frequency. We just can't be possessed any longer. I don't know how we harness that into a cure.
I think it's a good approach, though. I mean, I think if you can sort that out, I mean, even if you just come up with something that just sounds, science fantasy plausible, I think we're okay at that point.
I mean, I
So-
don't want crystals to be the answer. I really don't.
What if the iridescent fluid that we see in the principles of botanical science is ground up, is a result of the ground up beetles, and that can kind of cancel the infectious color?
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah.
That feels right to me too. Maybe the botanist was on the verge of figuring out how to counter this, but he was just too late, and he got taken over by the thing. So I mean, I think that, because that kind of explains the iridescent fluid and the beetles. Like, somebody with like botanical knowledge was trying to figure this out, right? And trying to figure out like how to stop it, and trying to figure out how to countermand the power of this color.
To me, the uranium glass with orchid motif is like a representation of what the flowers are doing. That there's this light generating from it. It is the orchid motif. So it's sort of like this is an attempt to essentially like productize and commodify the orchids beyond just being orchids as well, and sort of represents what's going on with those things.
It also could have been a first attempt to try and counteract the green. Like, if somebody was trying to figure out how to stop it, the botanist might have been, oh, like, maybe if I get green glass, and it could have been part of his experimentation, I think.
Where was that found? I can't remember.
I don't remember.
I want to say it was early on when.
That was a clue that I created.
Okay, yeah.
Jakob found it.
It was, yeah. I remember. That's right. I just don't remember where you found it, Jakob.
Were we visiting? Let me look at my notes here.
If it was just a vase somewhere, then I retract my hypothetical.
I mean, I like it just as a sort of like almost like a symbolic clue. Like, it has no direct bearing necessarily, but it sort of inspires your line of thinking. I think that's probably an appropriate explanation for it anyway. Okay, so all right.
Thought here.
Yeah.
On the dog thing, if it's the light that infects, but the perception of the color that cures, then it would make it so that regardless of the dog being able to perceive the color, the animals would get infected. But they can't necessarily change back because they can't perceive like, if we're leaning into like it's this like pigment, it is this iridescent fluid that is the antidote, then this just explains why it can go one way, why they can get infected, because it's the light, it's not the perception of color, but the perception of the color is what reveals and makes your brain aware of the danger of what's going on.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Is that making sense?
It does, yeah. Yeah, I get it. Okay, so I think that what's the significance of Victoria not being able to see the color green anymore then, in this instance? I think it connects up to just the idea of this particular green being like the medium of control, and the fact that this happened after Victoria was no longer under control. I think that might just speak to that basic principle of
It
the
could be
theory?
boiled. It could be boiled down to the fact that if green is the mesmerizing influence,
Mm.
and it was forcibly removed from my brain, Dominic just ripped it out, and it took more than it should have. Right? Like
Yeah,
it
yeah,
just
absolutely. Yeah, yeah. I think that's probably what's going on there with that. Um, okay, we're kind of getting there. I feel like we're pretty well getting there. So we have this idea of the glowing messiah is in fact this sort of like it is an entity. It is a real entity, an entity of light that is using um its ability to influence color and plants to create this emerald orchid, which is a medium for it to take control over people. It uses this particular shade of green as almost a way of like rewiring people's brains and being able to take over them, which I think is super interesting. And then it takes the extra step, apparently, of also implanting seeds in people to make the control like very, permanent, we'll say. Um, the the way you get out of from underneath this is to no longer be able to perceive that particular green. It's not that there is a chemical or biological solution here. It's almost more of like a psychological solution, or it's about perception, which I think is really interesting. We have a lot of extra context here, particularly with that artist, and also what happened to Lady or to Ms. Belacqua and to Lady Florence. So this is really intriguing. We think that perhaps the botanist was getting close to figuring out how to countermand the power of the Emerald Orchid, though didn't quite figure it out. But this explains the beetles and the iridescent fluid. He understood at some level that it had to do with the color, and the uranium glass with orchid motif is just simply going to be a thing that inspired the overall theory. It's feeling pretty good. You're going to have to come up with an antidote, but I feel like we're getting there. I mean, it's feeling pretty good. I'm not sure about the Book of Strange Flowers and how that might apply, but
Everybody drink a shot of mercury. It'll just like set your brain neurons aflame and burn out.
among other things, yeah.
I mean, it could just be as simple as Lady Florence's hallucinogenic cake, right? We just need to like put somebody in an altered state, and then when they come back, it'll be okay.
I love it. Okay, all right. So I feel like you've got down how it. You've answered the question. We know what it's doing, and we know how to stop it from doing what it's doing. You still got to come up with an actual antidote, but you at least know the process here, or you believe you do. It's going to be a +1 on the roll. Who wants to roll it?
I mean, could I just make a pitch on the Book of Strange Flowers just to get it in here?
Okay, sure. Yeah.
Because it could go either way. So it could
Okay.
either be that this is where the Herald of the Emerald Seed found the form that it would take on this world.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Is from the Book of Strange Flowers, and so it's representing this strange and rare flower. It knows that people will look at it because it's so like strange and unusual and beautiful in that way.
It could also be along the same lines. I kind of like the idea of because the clue actually sort of seems to imply that these are not real flowers. That like they're sort of like theoretical flowers, sort of.
Okay.
And so maybe the Emerald Orchid or something approximating it is in there, right? And that could be like, yeah, it's an interesting idea.
The other thing would be this was the tip off that the pigment would be maybe it's a rare book, maybe there is some plant in there that has that particular pigment was done in the illustration or whatever. So it was essentially the thing that the botanist like tipped the botanist off that sort of like reproductions of this color would be the thing that could stop it.
Yeah, I'm into it. All right. +2. Go for it, Mike.
Yeah. Here we go.
Do not use your trophy dice.
I'm trying not to use my trophy dice. That's what's going on here. Sorry, trophy. I love the dice. They're beautiful, but oh God. It's a 6 right now.
You guys are not going to survive this campaign.
Damn these not trophy dice. I
Yeah,
should have been
that's
using
right.
the
me
trophy dice.
aggressively giving you mastermind clues. You are all not going to survive this campaign.
Oh, wait. 6 plus 2. 8.
+2. Oh, okay.
Eight.
Okay, so all right.
Sorry, everyone. I just forgot the math.
Okay. The Emerald Orchid is going to fight you, but you are correct. Or the glowing Messiah is going to fight you, actually, but you are correct. Okay, I love it. Question answered. That's great. Let's talk about what's going to happen in this night phase. What is everyone interested in doing? We got a few things in the fire right now. Jazad, DI Pettigrew is to make a report to Jazad. Apparently, Dom is going with DI Pettigrew, it would seem. That is a thing. We have this ritual. The next step of the ritual is gonna, you've only got a certain number of night phases to solve the monochromatic men of Three Mills Island. You are up to, let's see here, I'm trying to count the number of night phases that have passed since this was active. If you don't do it tonight, you'll have to do it next time. So
Well, I don't have any social engagements. I can go to Three Mills Island and try to resolve it.
that's true. You are a much more effective person than I think the other members of Hargrave House have realized up to this point, because I don't think they know exactly what you're fully capable of doing. That is a possibility.
I don't know if I know.
Yeah, I guess we'll find out. We've also got you could try to do the antidote. I mean, it's just a matter of like successfully doing it once, and then we'll assume that it'll all get rolled out to London eventually, you know. So
I think Lady Florence's pettiness, especially with Jasad, is going to make her head towards this antidote thing.
oh yeah, because Jasad wants to use it, right? So
Yep,
yeah, you
yep.
can take this away from him. Yeah, it's good. Well, so Ms. Balakwa, what are you going to do? You're going to go help out Lady Florence or Jakob, or go to Resplendent, I suppose, or do something else entirely.
I am not going to the Resplendent. I think Victoria too is feeling the sting of this particular plant and needs to get this resolved.
Okay, sounds good to me. Plans are made. Taking a look at our phase tracker, you have the option of doing Janus Mass prompts right now if you want, or you can wait till the dawn.
I think
Mine
dawn
is
for me.
ready.
Go for it, Lady Florence.
So the mask that I checked off here is narrative flashback to the recent past, showing how the village still suffers the consequences of the explorer's occupation. So if you remember, there was essentially a revolt. Lady Florence was essentially using this Atlantean city as sort of like a genetic experimentation ground and playing matchmaker between people and guild folk and all manner of things. When she came back up to the surface and grew bored of what was going on down there, she put it on the map with the Wilton Davies Trench, quite literally. This started to appear on the map, and as we've seen, a lot of people questioned the importance of this discovery, and as we've seen, that just eggs Lady Florence on to be more and more vocal about it, and to push harder on this being a very important discovery. And so in her conversations, before she headed off into space, she had many conversations with dear Admiral Flagg, and he always seemed very resistant to the idea that there would be anything of value in the Wilton Davies Trench. Inside, Admiral Flagg is very curious about what's going on down there, especially based on what Lady Florence is hinting at. So he develops his own submersible vehicle his own submersible chimera, whatever creature that would be, and dives down. And when he dives down, he finds the ruins of Lady Florence's experiments and the revolts and all of that. And he finds still leading this Atlantean society is the boy, ashamed, uh, tormented by his role in this. And although he is in charge, very weak and malleable to Admiral Flagg, especially a cunning mastermind of his own. And Admiral Flagg has been essentially pillaging this Atlantean society and bringing the artifacts up. And this has become probably the biggest source of his own funding at this point, is bringing up relics, selling them to places like Cromwell Gordon's. And yeah.
Well, it also creates another connection between Flagg and Jazad too, because maybe Flagg is how Jazad got. I mean, like, we've established that Jazad is in connection with Atlanteans, right? Like, and or has some kind of awareness and connection to them, right? Yeah, it's interesting. It's intriguing. Thank you. Any other Janus Mask?
I'm going to do mine later. I think it'll have a better plot.
Okay.
Gravity.
Same.
All right then.
And I think, Brian, if you're good with this, should we do the vulnerable move now, or?
Oh, we could. Yeah, that would work. If we're doing the vulnerable move now, maybe I should do my mask first.
Vulnerable move. Do you mean like between the two of you, or?
Yeah, between the two of us.
Oh, I mean, normally that's just something you would do during day or night phase.
Day nice.
Okay.
Yeah, there's no role playing in dusk phase.
Oh, got it.
But I guess headed into the night is, I'm adding this as an addendum.
Oh, sure. Yeah. You
right.
can do that.
Let me ask an additional question. Are we for sure going to do 2 night phases?
I think that makes a ton of sense.
Okay.
Yeah, especially if you have more to get done. Like, if you want to try to get both these knocked out, it might be worth doing. So.
Right. So then, rather than sort of dividing with me chasing off to the 3 Mills Island by myself, should I be heading somewhere else with?
You could, yeah.
All right.
If you do 2 night phases, Dom could probably go hand with you to 3 Mills Island, right after Resplendent. Yeah. So.
Well, how about this? How about then I do my my mask now, and then in the night phase we'll do the vulnerable move, because I'm going to otherwise be walking into the night phase. I was going to be walking into the night phase solo with 3 conditions. It's like, this looks like a disaster. So, and it'll make sense. So my mask was let me roll to it here. The moss-covered gate to narrate a scene in which I receive a letter from my earthly parents urging me to return home. Returning back to Hargrave House, the post has been dropped off, and there's a letter there from Davos and Rhiannon, my parents, and it says, in essence, we miss you so, Jakob. You really should come back. Wee Davy misses you. That's the dog, if you don't remember. Wee Davy misses you dearly. The flowers are in bloom. It's a beautiful time to be in Wales. We've received word from Becca, the neighbor you recall, that she's giving up on London. The city's not right for her, and we fear for you. We fear that London is not right for you either. And come home, dear Jakob, please. Sort of the gist of it. But that leaves me with the condition homesick.
Shall we go ahead and roll into our night phase then?
And I will be doing the handsome cab.
All right. Well, let's do our first unseen then, or introduce it. Our first unseen is going to be the prison hulk at Woolwich, which is on line 11, far right side. Near the industrial town of Woolwich are a number of hollowed-out old warships that serve as temporary prisons for convicts set to be transferred to Australia and other penal colonies. One of these prison hulks is Bellerophon, now called Captivity. A 2 young cook is walking above and below deck, passing out the evening's portion of hard biscuits and pea soup. Everyone does paint a scene. Sarah, you can do prompt 2. Mike, you can do prompt 3. And Brian, you can do prompt 4. Let's take a 3-minute break. We'll come back and do that. The Prison Hulk. Captivity. How do we know captivity is a nightmare of filth and desperation?
Not even the rats will go there. They just are lined up on the wharf outside, and there are no rats inside of it.
Those on a nightly stroll can smell it from quite a distance of decaying, rotted meats and filth.
The converted cells are small and cramped. This isn't what this ship was meant for. And because of that, they're almost all single occupancy, facing a blank wall. And so the prisoners have piled their waste and mess across against one wall, and they sleep almost pressed into a wall shared with a neighbor. And they'll reach out and try to hold hands just to get some human contact.
There is some local citizen who passes by the place where this is docked, is either trying to be ironic or cruel or hopeful. They keep leaving a potted flower out facing the ship. It's just this discordant, either sense of hope or, look at what you all are missing in there.
I heard talk of a vulnerable move scene between Lady Florence and Jakob, or Jakob and someone. What's the vice and what's the scene?
The vice is gambling. So I think we're back at Hargrave House, and we're sitting, and I've just been like, I'm still hallucinating a little bit, seeing colors. I'm still steamed on this whole Jasad thing as well, and I'm just like staring at Jakob, and I say, "Come on, grab your coat. It's time to stop playing childish games and to teach you something that the grown-ups do." And we are going to an underground card game.
As I pick up my coat, that letter falls out of the pocket, and I kind of anxiously tuck it back in, and I say, just got a letter from my parents today, but I'm open for anything. Yes, I would love to learn about these card games.
We can have the scene.
Something.
Yeah, we can have the scene. Go ahead. Maybe it's on the way. I have something to do once you get there, but this is a good enough justification for the vulnerable moves. Yeah.
I think like the sort of like vulnerable moment we want to touch on is going to be during the card game, as Lady Florence is divining from playing cards.
I will tell you that the card game is not as busy as usual. A light night.
So it is a light night. Lady Florence like sits down and like sits Jakob down and is sort of like explaining the rules.
I have to admit, Lady Florence, I'm kind of relying on your generosity. I don't know how to. I have this much money. Is that enough? I don't know how one does this.
That's perfect. Set that down. Set it all down. Make sure that you're placing the maximum bet. You really need to feel the thrill of exploring the dangers of this world for once in your life, Jakob.
If you say so, and I'll put down pretty much all the cash I own.
And as the cards are being dealt, there's a king of diamonds gets played, and you can see that Lady Florence starts kind of imagining like what these cards mean. And then there's a king of clubs that places. And she's seeing colors very strangely, right? And so she almost perceives black as red when she sees this king of clubs drop down. And she says, You would think that the King of Diamonds was the special one with the diamonds, but truly it's this Crimson King of Clubs. That is the true specimen, Jakob. That's the one you want to look for. That's the one in charge of all of this.
Are we looking for a pair? Or
Uh, she draws her next card, and it's a Queen of Clubs, and she has this Queen of Hearts from the previous card game very early on in the campaign, and she nudges Jakob to look at her swap the cards. Maybe even on the way over, they talked about how to cheat at cards, and so she has slipped out that Queen of Clubs and has torn it into pieces and replaced it with her Queen of Hearts.
fascinating. I will do my best in entirely inadequate poker face to try to not reveal that cheating is occurring within my line of sight.
And she's just, yeah, like sometimes you have to replace certain players in order to get what you really want and what you really need. And finally, a jack gets laid down on the table next to these cards. And she just seems to slip and says, Jack, he called you Ulysses, but I always wanted to call you Jack. Those Walshes, though, protecting you from the facts of your world.
The Walshes? You mean my family?
And she kind of like shakes and comes to and realizes that she's like stepped over a line. And yeah, I don't know. Like we lose our hands. Is essentially what I come to, I guess, is that all of that money is gone now.
We'll come back to this. Good. Dom, as you're getting ready for your night, the slugger is also getting ready for something. He's engaging in his old fight night preparations, oiling his body up, doing some calisthenics, stretching, shadow boxing, that kind of thing. He's getting his bag ready to go out.
Do you need a hand with that?
No, I'm okay. I just getting ready for a little bit of fisticuffs.
I think that's grand.
It is indeed.
Come to watch you, but I'm otherwise engaged. I'm sorry.
Where are you headed?
I believe I'm headed to the Resplendent.
Oh, well, so am I.
So are you.
Yes. Jazad is holding contests on Resplendent tonight. Many people are going.
I know that we don't have the sort of relationship where these things are you've every reason not to take this seriously, but I feel like that's a bad idea.
Well, feel as you wish, but I can't just sit here in Hargrave House every day and every night. I've got to get out and do what I do. And you know what I do.
Of course I do, of course, and I wouldn't wish for anything else, but perhaps Resplendent isn't the best location.
How bad can it be? I've seen these Venusian fops. If I am to face a Venusian, I'm not too concerned about my chances of winning in such a fight. And the pay is good.
Of course.
Great big sack full of those little crystal coins. Buys you a lot in London these days.
Yes. Well, be careful for me, will you?
I will. Perhaps I'll see you there.
Yes, perhaps.
Miss Belacqua, how does your night proceed?
I think that she is sitting at a desk in her room. She has in a glass jar the tendrils of the orchid that were pulled from her head. And she has a few jars and powders and things, and she's earnestly going to get work on trying to figure out what beetles to crush up in what order and trying to find an antidote for this. But her mind wanders a bit and she finds herself casting out her awareness to see if she can contact the demon in the form of a girl that she sent to torment Greco.
I think you can definitely do that. What do you want her to do?
Not to do so much as I am looking to see. This is a check-in, like a parole officer situation, in which I need to know precisely what is and is not happening, and also if she admits it to herself, is giddy with the details of his gory demise in his brain. And there's a lot there.
I love it. It's good. You get your answer almost right away in your mind. Witch, I demand to be released from this task.
Well, why don't you describe to me how successful you have been, and we can renegotiate your terms.
The boy is very powerful and not easily susceptible to my manipulations.
That sounds like you are failing to do the one thing that I asked of you.
The boy handily ejects me from his consciousness. The boy is very good at muddling my mind, my perceptions. He is a singular talent. In fact, he's impressed upon me that I should tell you that, to quote, "This is a very amusing little distraction you have sent to me, Ms. Belacqua, but I regret to inform you that you are still nowhere near my equal."
I see. Now, I just assumed being, surely you feel no shame in your demonic nature, but I assumed being a dark, fiendish, violent perpetrator that you might show just a little bit more creativity. Why continue this direct assault? Have you tried manipulating those around him to make his life more difficult? Don't give me that. I can hear it.
Are you telling me how to do my job, witch?
Are you failing to do your job well?
This is not how this sort of arrangement normally goes. The powers of hell are your masters, witch. We do not answer to you. You answer to us.
Well, it sounds like you would like another week worth of trying.
He huffs off into the interdimensional interdimensional hallway. Let's go back to our ship, the prison hulk. Sarah, please narrate a scene in which we see the convicts at leisure. How do they entertain themselves? How do they maintain their connection to God and society, if at all?
Those imprisoned here have very little to do to occupy themselves, and in fact will take leftover hardtack and essentially try and roll it from one end to the other in a game in which they are trying to score points if they hit through the bars and such, and just share a communal sense of sport. But society at large does not affect most of them. But in a dark corner of a cell, we do see one person who has just a few pages of the back half of the Bible while they're trying to read with a little bit of daylight coming through a crease in the boards, and slowly trying to continue, hoping that perhaps this relationship might free them from this torment.
I like it. Let's wrap up this vulnerable move between Lady Florence and Jakob. Which conditions do we think we've cleared here?
I don't think, well, if the hallucination wears off, I guess the color perception, but I think I was going more for a clue here. I don't remember exactly.
I think you get to, I don't remember how the move works. Hold on. I gotta look at the
Clear a
reference.
condition and then gain a clue or ask a personal question.
Yeah, you can. Yeah. I mean, you both get to clear a condition, but
Okay.
it's your vice, so you can either stumble on a clue or invite Jakob to ask you about the past.
Does it make enough sense that she's kind of like stalling time for the hallucinations from the cake to end and the color perception stuff to wear off?
Yeah, I'm into that.
Narratively?
Yeah, that works. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I'm into it. Sounds good. What about you, Jakob?
I think if we get a couple more lines, I could clear homesick.
Okay, go for it. Yeah.
I'll say, oh dear, I'm afraid I've lost all our money. This is not a full house. A full house is good, but I know which cards are full house again. I'm sorry. I'm not good at this. Is there a partial house? Like if you have like a house divided, is that a hand?
Yeah. Sometimes the hands you want aren't the hands you get, are they?
Kind of, look at my own hands at the moment. They look like normal human fingers. I say, I don't know. Maybe I'm not fit for London. Maybe I should actually go home. Your hospitality here at Hargrave House has been amazing, but I haven't really found the answers that I've sought. I mean, no front, Lady Florence.
There are much bigger answers for you here than there are back there. As far as I know, at least.
I remember when I first set my suitcase down on the step there at Hargrave House. It almost felt like home, but alien somehow.
Hargrave House feels that way to many people. Many people who do call it home in the end.
Oh, perhaps one day. You don't do anything right the first time, do you? Maybe I just need more practice. I can become skilled at these card games with a little more persistence.
A little bit more practice, a little bit more connection is really all you need.
Thank you for taking me under your wing yet again.
All right, so what's the condition, Jakob?
Gonna clear homesick.
All right, I love it. And you're going to stumble on a clue, Lady Florence?
That was my thought. Can I make it
You could be thinking of it. This can be a clue for any active mystery. If you know what it is, go ahead and say it, but otherwise, just whenever you're ready.
Can it be a mastermind clue, or is that
it has to be a regular clue? Yeah.
All right.
I think at a certain point, the sort of person who runs this game comes to your table and says, "Well, we're having to shut down early, I'm afraid. All the betting money is up at Resplendent tonight."
Oh, is that what's going on?
Yes, apparently, Jazad is holding gladiatorial combat.
Oh, we've been involved in that sort of affair before, haven't we, Walsh?
Indeed. And then Sorry, quick character question. Can you reveal in society that you've been aboard Resplendent? Like if somebody overhears that, is that just really weird?
No, I think it's no. Like Jazad is very much like made himself like a
All right,
part of
it's kind of
London.
normal.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I say, my brief time aboard, gladiatorial fights seem to fit the ego and nature of the being that I met.
I'm trying to remember, would I know that you were aboard?
I could have mentioned it at some point easily. So let's say yeah.
You
Well, I feel
did
like it.
because I think that he went with Christian and we were all there
Okay,
when he
okay,
left
okay,
off. Mhm.
okay. And so I'll say something like, I really don't think you should be continuing your ventures onto Resplendence. That could be. I'd want you to venture out into the world, grow your wings, learn to fly, but Resplendent may not be the place to do that.
It is definitely a dangerous area. I'm surprised Christian made it out alive.
Indeed. Ms. Blackwell, you're working on this antidote. You're arguing with the demon. Um, you're presently still foiled by Greco. All this stuff is going on. But all in all, a fairly sedate night at Hargrave House for you. You hear something from one of the corners of your room. Dark, shadowy corner. What do you do?
Am I able to cast a ritual to remove this darkness from the corner?
You'll realize pretty quickly that it's the Limehouse Lurker.
Oh, yes. Okay.
He steps out of the shadows, looking like he always does, stringy hair, pale, wretched in every way imaginable. And he speaks. We've never heard him speak. What are you doing?
Well, I'm trying to find a cure for something. What are you doing?
I was called here.
By whom?
By them. And he's looking over your shoulder.
Uh-huh. Victoria is picking up anything sharp from the implement table, which she's been working on, as she turns around and looks behind her.
It's just the dark entities that are always with you.
Oh, Jesus.
They have called the lurker up here.
You frightened me terribly, little one. I thought somehow
They have not
that
tasted your blood in a long time. They've asked me to come and take a drink on their behalf.
Victoria considers this. And after a moment's consideration, said, yes, all right. It will be quick, or I will end you and have words with them later. I have things to do this evening.
What part of your body do you let him feed from?
The crook of my elbow.
Hmm.
So I have access to its neck if need be.
It bites in. And then it withdraws and says, "They want me to do it slowly." It sinks its teeth back in. And it drinks. And it's caught up in some kind of weird reverie. "I've missed you, Mommy. I've missed you. Don't make me stay here with these bad people anymore." The spirits are mocking you.
Yeah,
Miss Belacqua.
Victoria is not having any of this. Unfortunately, had it not been for a mother's love. And she does her best to stab this being through an essential part. And I think her own blood starts spilling out of the wound that she makes in its throat.
Mr. Constantine, Resplendent has been outfitted to be indeed a sort of contest space. There are Venusians, there are high society Londoners, there's even some cheap seats for the poor people. There are, Jazad is there in the place of importance on his raised dais. He's up there with a man you've actually never seen before, a Londoner, a very kind of nebbishy looking man with an oiled mustache and very fashionable, well-fitted suit, and he seems very delighted to be up there with Jazad, whoever this man is. D.I. Pettigrew is there as well. He's like, "Well, going to be rather difficult to give a report in these sorts of circumstances, don't you think?"
It does seem rather busy. I assume this is not how you normally meet with Jasad.
"Well, this is my first time aboard Resplendent, and my goodness, look at the rabble. But everyone does seem to have their spirits up rather high. My goodness, this place it seems bigger than it appears to be from the outside. How strange. Oh, but these are strange times in London, strange times." And all this stuff is going on. Everyone's excited. Bets are being placed. There are some contests, some fights that, between Venusians and Londoners, and they always end kind of bloody. Jazad, we're playing for big stakes here in the ring. But eventually, it's featured as a sort of marquee event. The Shoreditch Slugger versus Tarnak, a visitor. Tarnak is a being that is considerably larger than the slugger, has 6 arms, is kind of pinkish red in color, and has a lower half that is a serpentine body rather than legs. And everyone is like oohing and ahhing over this. And the slugger looks a little like, for maybe the first time in his life, a little nervous about how this is going to go. And the fight begins, and Tarnak just has the better of him. I mean, the slugger is fighting with 2 powerful fists, but Tarnak is fighting with 6 powerful fists. And Tarnak is bigger. Tarnak is able to wrap the slugger in his serpentine body and choke him out, like it's not going well. And Jazad the whole time is like, I was told this is the best warrior London has to offer. Count me not impressed. And there's like a hubbub. It's all like, kind of, there's cheers, there's scandalous gasps, there's all this stuff going on, but Slugger's getting his ass kicked. Eventually, Tarnak has the Slugger completely at his mercy, wrapped up in his coiled body. Just one arm, with the Slugger is trying to punch his way out of Tarnak's grasp. And Tarnak looks to Jazad and says, "What is the verdict, my lord?" And we'll end our session there, in between the night phase. Next time, we will do the rest of this night phase plus a second night phase. For now, let's go to Stars and Wishes. Whoever wants to go first, take it away.
I mean, I probably had an echo in the night, but fuck if I'll remember it. Oh, wow. We just had so many callbacks, and it felt good to get back in the groove. And having so many weeks off, I feel like all of that pent up energy also translated into, instead of Jason vaporizing our side characters, just weaponizing them in other ways against us. So, star for that. I also had a star for Dr. Gastrell's like blithe, "Oh, I don't care about you," when Jakob tried to like, "Oh, hello, I'm here too." There was a moment of Lady Florence and I, like I think that it was in the chat, the colorblind leading the colorblind. I have a star for Lady Florence in general for just being the least sensitive person ever, and your dice bearing that out today. Pardon me. I think that my favorite part of Dom's momentum is that so many O's on your hunt mean that you're maybe getting closer towards the beast, but it might not go well. And I'm feeling like this is kind of a precursor situation with the Slugger and, is it Tarnak? Yeah. Keep wanting to say Tarmac, and that's not correct. The stuff with the lurker was super creepy. I like almost X-carded Mummy, and I'm like, nope, I can stomach this. I can do it. So yeah, just more of the same, please, for wishes.
Yeah, star for that cruel cliffhanger. And also, yeah, the way all the callbacks, all the appearances by the different characters. I think Sarah covered a lot of what I was going to say. I just really enjoyed a lot of this, especially Gastrell trying to murder someone right in front of us. And Brian, you handled that mask and the way you solved that with aplomb. And I really enjoyed every time we see more of Lady Florence is great. But this very blatant teasing of Jakob's actual origins right to Jakob's face. It's great to finally get that out, and I look forward to seeing how Jakob processes that, if he processes that or doesn't just write a letter home.
What I love about that, it's a star for me, if I can just interject before I forget. What I loved about that moment is Jakob is only at Hargrave House because he doesn't know who he is, and he wants to figure out who he is. And Lady Florence has apparently known the whole time and not told him. There's something very Lady Florence about that, which I kind of love. Sorry, go ahead.
No, that's great. And yeah, Sarah, I really enjoyed. I really liked the scene between Dom and Victoria and the minor surgery, and then the way that you parlayed the vision changes into the answer to the question. That was great. And yeah, killing the lurker, or at least bleeding him, good. Dom would approve.
I'll do my stars. I really, it's already started. Yeah, I really liked that sort of like reveal, or that very, very like Lady Florence sort of approach to Jakob was great. That whole scene was really good, actually. The card playing scene, as well, star in that scene. I fucking died when Jakob said, vis-a-vis a full house, is there such a thing as a partial house, a house divided? Say that was really good. Really, very much enjoyed. I really like how much of this whole campaign is kind of like Ms. Balakwa's like kind of side stories that were going on always, you know, and we got to see a little bit more of that today. I continue to love this sort of like vexation that she has with Greco, and then we introduce this demon and all this other stuff. It's all just kind of fun. Fun to role play out. And yeah, and I also really enjoyed the Limehouse Lurker scene and how you handled that. I was basically putting him there to see if you would kill him, and you did. So that was really interesting. But also because it was like, I don't know, he's been in the basement forever. We've not seen him yet, so let's do something with him. Well, it's not true. He led you to Julius as well, but yeah, really good stuff. Yeah, and the scene with Gustrel was a lot of fun. The way you all reacted to that and handled it was very enjoyable. I liked Dom and Di Pettigrew as well. That was pretty fun to role play. Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff today, and I'm excited for next week. You know, because I think it's going to be. This was already kind of an extended night phase. I think we're going to have like continue that, and then probably another extended night phase, just because we've got some big. I kind of want that. It's a wish, I guess. I kind of want that like confrontation at Three Mills Island to be kind of a big deal. Like I think it want to be kind of a big showdown. If everybody is there, I think that'd be really great. So we'll kind of see how it goes. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Stars for Miss Balakwa, uh there were a number of exchanges. Oh, the point where you were not being able to see green, but we're definitely seeing red. There was like all of these like really intense exchanges that you were having throughout, like with Jasad as the botanist, with that. And I was like, oh, these are definitely stars. And then that Limehouse Lurker scene, just blew them all out of the water, but like a really cool trio of moments there. uh Dom for continuing to parry like everything that Jason says into some type of innuendo is really wonderful. I love it. It's so great. And then yeah, it was really enjoyable like doing the scene that Brian and I have been like kind of like batting back and forth basically since the beginning of like, would this work? Is this a thread that we should just like keep open? So it's fun to go back on that. And then even we're having discussions about like what are all these other little moments that Jakob has been having, and how do they sort of yeah interact with the story and that type of thing. I think is really fun. The Oh, and then Jason just like bringing the mommy motif in like a really like a creepy way. uh like is a really like that's sort of an echo in the night in a way, like not a capital E capital N, but that was really cool. I think that added even more drama to that particular scene. So yeah, wishes. I am looking forward to big showdown stuff here. It feels like it's very much building. This is all building towards a climax, and yeah, it's exciting to have that nearing.
If I could interject again, one thing I just realized that's an interesting mechanical wrinkle that's worth pointing out to all of you, as well as to maybe people watching the video, is Monochromatic Men of Three Mills Island is on a night phase timer, 4 night phases, and it goes off, right? But per the strict reading of the rule, you're invoking the hansom
Oh.
cab advances it automatically, so you have to finish it in that night phase or it goes off. Like it's not going to be like you get another shot at it, right? Like if you don't stop it, it's going to happen at that moment. So that just increases the stakes and the drama of this night. So I think that's pretty exciting. Yeah.
This was, feel like if we summarize this episode, that this one was all about family of one sort or another, and not always, good relationships, but in really interesting storytelling ways. It was great to see Lady Florence and Jezad's romance kind of revealed, and like Mike said, we've been hatching up this backstory between our characters for quite a while. It's fun to see it sort of finally playing out, or coming to light, I should say. What else? Oh, seeing Miss Blockwitz become increasingly impatient. It was perfect. It was really nice to see all that. And what else? Oh, this is going back to the beginning, but I loved our overgrown greenhouse imagery. Like our collective description of that really just like kind of saw it in my head. It was a neat space. And a big wish. I can't wait to see the showdown between Dom and Tarnak the Six-Limbed. In my head, I'm already picturing it as like stop motion claymation sort of thing, sort of Jason and the Argonauts level of animation. But it'll be great to see how that play out.
Yeah, I want to know if Dom's going to interject or not. Like, what's going to happen here? Yeah.
And one other wish, I hope that somewhere down the road there's a chance for Jakob to have a moment with the Limehouse Lurker to say goodbye, come to some degree of acceptance.
You'll never know it's gone.
Was that everybody? All right. Well, if there are no more stars and wishes, I will go ahead and we'll wave goodbye to people watching the video. Goodbye, everyone watching the video.